Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I'm your host, Leah Martin, here to break down UFC Vegas 36 Brunson versus Till, which is going to take place this Saturday, September 4th at the UFC Apex. Joining me, like always, with their breakdowns, we have SBR's UFC expert, David Manyun, and MMA Mania's lead host, Matt Ryan. Now, before we get into all the good, juicy stuff, like always, just real quick, give this video a like, subscribe to our channel. That way you never miss a show with us. Now, before we get into anything UFC related, for all my football fans out there, we have SBR's free Pick 6 football contest with up to $50,000 in prizes. It's going to be starting very soon. So you've got to apply, register, all that stuff, sbrpicks.com/pick6. The contest will begin on September 7th. If I am correct, yes, September 7th. So again, join, register. It's going to be super fun. This is definitely my favorite contest that SBR holds every year. So again, let's play. All right, now let's get into the show. Like always, I just want to recap the previous fight weekend, and that was UFC Vegas 35, Barboza versus Chikadze. And I'm being very honest, I have been having a rough couple of weeks, really rough, and no excuses. It's just me being distracted, and I got to do better. So hopefully this weekend will be better for me. But I want to hear how the guys' weekend went. All right, so Dave, I'll begin with you just for a recap of UFC Vegas 35.
Do you know what? The event was a cracking event. My parlays slipped, but in terms of picks, I think I went 9-3 on the picks. I mean, my picks were on fire. It was just the parlays that let me down. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, he just came back from the dead to doing exactly what he does best, and that is knocking opponents out in round one. And it's funny because, you know, I weren't on the show last week, but I would have said, just look at this guy's record. It's KO, round one or bust. And if you can ever get plus money on Abdul on the round one props, then you're probably best off taking it, especially if you do like the other side and you can fit both in and bet both sides, because, you know, you can always make some guaranteed money. And then it was Gerald Meerschaert, same scenario. It's submission or bust. And if you can bet both sides, especially when you got that really high juice on Mahmoud Muradov, it's best to always cover your back with them guys who have got really only one path to victory, and Gerald proved me wrong and locked up. I think it was the rear naked choke, weren't it, in the second round, and he shut me up. But, you know, the Ultimate Fighters predicted all them fights. I've been watching this season religiously because I've missed it so much. Andre Petrosky locking up a KO. I thought he was going to win by decision. Didn't expect that. And then Ricky Turkios and Brian Battle, the new Ultimate Fighters. Think they're going to have a prosperous career in the UFC. And then, of course, you know, the main event, Giga. I did pick Giga. I saw a lot of people fading him, and no hate on anybody picking Edson. I just had a funny feeling it's Giga's time, and he proved that he's on another level in this striking game. And honorable mention to Daniel Rodriguez as well. I think Kevin Lee fighting in this welterweight division is going to be extremely tough. Coming in 5'9". He just hasn't got the size. I mean, he's got the width, he's got the thickness, but when it comes to height, he's going to struggle, especially against well-rounded strikers like Daniel Rodriguez. But overall, yeah, it was an incredible event, and I did pretty well.
I'm glad to hear you had a great weekend. Now, how about you, Matt? I'm loving the half up dude today. You're really rocking it. How did your weekend go with your picks?
Well, I look as good as I feel about the weekend. Daniel Rodriguez was fantastic. I had to cover, I had the mind store for you guys last week with Jack Sampillo, and seemingly I didn't do that terrible of a job. So I still have a job here, so that's good at the very least. Last week was a weird week. That whole card was scattershot. We saw with the Ultimate Fighter finales, the way these cards were constructed. It was built for people who are watching all the way through. If you're a passive observer of MMA, you were going to have a weird time, and it wasn't for new adapters of the sport. But glad for this card this week, and I'm glad that the Jake Paul fight is over, because now we can just get past that and wait for the next one. And just we need an Ivan Drago of MMA to come in and just clean that man's clock. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah. I don't even want to talk about Jake Paul right now. Just
bro. It's just bro.
Yeah. Shamefully, I took him 9-1 by decision, which covered my back on a straight Tyron Woodley bet. And I've had no pride about it all week. I've had my head held low, but the odds were just too much to offer. I couldn't see him knocking him out.
No.
So I thought, if it's going to be a win for Jake Paul, it's definitely going to be by decision. So I got lucky on that one, because he should have got knocked out. Let's face it.
Yeah, but the man is facing someone with arthritis who hasn't knocked anybody out in half a decade. So
that's what Tyron Woodley does, though. And I see everyone saying, "Oh, it's a fix." But if anybody knows Tyron Woodley, that's what he does. He has done this in so many fights. He doesn't rush upon guys, even when he's had guys wobbled. He just doesn't do that. So for people to say it's a fix, I think it's a bit far fetched. But yeah, let's get on to the real fighting anyway.
Right. We can talk about that at a different time. Just hit us up on Twitter if you want to talk about Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley. But let's start our main card breakdown. And this first fight, I'm so excited for this fight. We have lightweight Paddy Pimblett versus Luigi Vendramini. Via BetOnline, Pimblett is -152 and Vendramini is +131. Dave, I'm going to begin with you today for your breakdown and pick for this first fight.
Do you know what? This was supposed to be my card. This was supposed to be UFC London, as you can tell, with all the English and British European fighters on this card. But I'm kind of glad it isn't. I'm glad it isn't because of the hits that it took. We lost Leroy Murphy, Paul Craig and Alexander Gustafsson. Diakese was meant to be back in action. Jack Shaw is on the card, but he's had 2 rescheduled opponents. And then there was Ankalaev and Volkan Oezdemir. The card has just took a major hit, and luckily there's some entertainment still left. And I think, Paddy the Baddy is one of them. I mean, it's a long-awaited debut for Paddy. But straight off the bat, I have to focus on the increase in value you're receiving if you do want to bet Paddy and put him on your betting slip. He's gone from an opening price of 185, and now you can find him at certain books for -130. But in reverse, if you like Vendramini, you might want to wait for that price and maybe take your chance in play, because I can see Paddy having some early success and it flipping round. The value on Vendramini has kind of evaporated. And it would be distasteful betting ethics to place a bet on this number. So hopefully, you're on the side of Paddy, because the value isn't really anywhere else to be seen. But mathematics aside, Paddy, he stems from my side of the world and is respected as a dangerous jiu-jitsu practitioner. Coming from our biggest promotion over here, which is Cage Warriors, started when he was just 18. He's got an 11-3 record for them, former champion, and he's finally made the dream come true, making it to the UFC, what most martial artists want to reach in their careers, and his debuting this weekend after turning down 2 contract opportunities in the past. But I do have some problems. His striking offense, it's not his go-to. He does have 4 TKO stoppages on his record. The weaknesses you'll notice in this is his lack of head movement and his striking defense. His chin is always up in the air, and he's going to accept being backed up against the cage. But, let's keep it real. This isn't an area he's going to be looking to initiate during the majority of this fight and during the majority of his professional fights. He's not a striker. He wants this fight to get to the ground. Vendramini could be a great coming out party for Paddy. They're not giving him a killer, when he's making his debut. But for Vendramini, I think his greatest asset is his toughness. He has shown good takedown attempts outside of the UFC, but he doesn't really do much with it. A lack of transitions, no eagerness to finish the fight. I think Vendramini really it's just a fire at heart. He likes to brawl. He's a wild striker. There isn't really much technical ability behind his shots. When he's fighting on the outside, not much there. But inside the pocket, he's gonna throw hooks like a madman, and you're taking notice of his career wins by technical knockout and knockout. This is how most of them came about: winging shots of rage. It's a left-right hook combo, which he enjoys the most. See, the problem having this fight is it's just hard to anticipate if Vendramini is gonna stand at kickboxing range like he did against Zaim in his last fight. Because Pimblett can just throw kicks and take the advantage there. But on the flip side, if Vendramini moves forward, I can't envision Paddy having any success outside of some lucky counterpunch, which I believe is doubtful. I think Paddy needs this one on the ground and getting it to the ground. He hasn't proved it at this level, and he's also rough on bottom, and he can be swept when he forces these takedown attempts. And although it pains me to say this, because Paddy, he is a great character for the UFC, his personality is entertaining alone. I'm just really struggling to put confidence in his abilities. And, I did say at the start, if you are a fan of Paddy and you think he's got the skills to get this win, the odds are in your favor. I'm just not feeling it this weekend. I would have much preferred plus money on Paddy, but the hype surrounding him and where he's coming from, it's just too much right now, and I don't want to be on the wrong end of it. And if anything, if I'm looking for a play, I'm probably going to wait in play. Paddy's going to come out hype, UFC debut, all this pressure on him. I feel like he could get some early success. But Vendramini, when you look at his last fight and him winning that third round, he came out like a man possessed. And if he does this against a guy like Paddy, I would not be surprised if he finished the fight. And it's painful because, I want to support British fighters, but I have to keep it realistic. And a debut fight on a main card, I need to see more from Paddy. I really do, because his striking offense is a huge weakness. And when you've got a guy who's consistently reliant on that takedown, it could be a rough fight for him. In reverse, he could come out, he could get it straight to the ground, lock up a rear naked choke, and it could be done with. But I just can't put that confidence into him right now. So it's a no bet for me. And if I'm forced, maybe some nice odds on Vendramini in play. Although I hate to say it.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm definitely not betting this fight, but I'm very excited for this fight because I'm so excited to watch Paddy Pimblett in the UFC because I feel like he's going to be perfect for it. But again, I'm not betting it. I'm just merely enjoying it. Okay. Yeah. But how about you, Matt? What is your breakdown and pick for this first fight?
Yeah, this one is a bit too spicy for my liking. I want to root for Paddy. As an Irish American from New York, we are legally bound to root for fellow Irish people in all forms of life. That's why most of us are Notre Dame fans, even though none of us have been to Indiana. But you take a look at Pimblett's record. He's won his last two fights in Cage Warriors, one via an RNC, the other via ground and pound, both of them in round one. His last two losses have only come within the last 4 years by decision in 2018 and 2017. His only other loss came in his fifth pro fight back in 2013. But then you take a look at Vendramini, and he's not had a hot run of it in his last three fights inside the octagon. He is 1-2 since joining the UFC. He got dropped in his UFC debut back in 2018 and took a majority decision loss this past June. His only win was a TKO. And that's the thing. He's got knockout power. He started out his career 7-0, all of them by way of stoppage. He's only been to the scorecards once in his career, and that was in the aforementioned fight back in June. He's knocked out 5. He's submitted 4. This is a stay-away fight for me, but this is going to be an exciting fight on the card. Paddy's the heart. But Vendramini, there's a lot of different intangibles there. Both of these guys are going to be looking to throw leather. And as Dave said, Pimblett's gonna try to use that BJJ to his advantage and try to take him down. I think we're gonna see a stalemate inside the baby cage, but that's the fun part of the baby cage. You never know what's gonna happen when you have an elite level grappler, an elite jiu-jitsu practitioner, and a guy who likes to throw leather. It's gonna be a fun fight, but I'm staying away from this one.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a fun fight, or I'm hoping it will be. But if you guys want to get on the fight, again, via BetOnline, Pimblett is -151 and Vendramini is +131. But let's move on to the next fight. We have light heavyweight Modestas Bukasukas versus Khalil Rountree Jr. Via BetOnline, Bukasukas is -151 and Rountree is also +131, so same odds as the last fight. That's perfect. Matt, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this matchup.
Man, we've got two guys here who have been suffering a rough go of it in the UFC. It's the only big boy fight. Well, there's one of two big boy fights. Like the co-main event's a big boy fight. I'm excited for that one. But Khalil Rountree has lost his last two fights, one by decision back in January against Marcin Prachniow, and the other one against Ian Cutelaba back in 2019. That one by TKO. His last win was a unanimous decision over Eric Anders. He's 4-5-1 in the UFC, so he has had a rough go of it inside the octagon. His last winning streak was in 2017 when he dropped Paul Craig and Daniel Jolly. So, beating Paul Craig, that's a pretty big accomplishment. But for a guy who, has been seemingly hyped in a 205-pound division that needs stars, that needs elite athletes, he hasn't been able to come up with the winning combination lately. And then you take a look at Bukasukas. He's 1-2 in the UFC, and he got knocked out by Jimmy Crute. I would get knocked out by Jimmy Crute. Anyone here but Lee on this show right now would be knocked out by Jimmy Crute. But he also had a 7-fight winning streak prior to this run in the UFC, including a TKO of Andres Michailidis. He's only been past the third round 3 times in his career. And he's been knocked out twice, submitted once, decision once. This one's a tough fight. I'm going to go with Bukasukas because he's been more effective with his striking. I think he's been able to turn things around. Khalil Rountree should be 9-6, and not 9-5-1 and 1 no contest because one of his opponents got popped for the marijuana cigarettes. So what are we doing here with that, Nevada? I'm going with Bukasukas, but this is a parlay piece for me. This is not a straight up pick.
All right. Well, how about you, Dave? Do you have the same breakdown and pick as Matt, or do you have a different view for this fight?
Do you know what? Keep your money close to your chest. See, this time last year, my birthday weekend, I can't remember exactly what the card was, but I was so excited for it. I put 3 parlays on. I gave 3 parlays out. They all won. This time round, I'm not so lucky. There's just not a lot to bet on this weekend. After all the rescheduling bouts and the fights that have fizzled out or has been scrapped, we're not left with Merchant, and this one is a scrappy one. We've got two kickboxers in this 205 division. We've got the baby cage, and Bukasukas has only allowed, the judge's opinion to get involved in 2 of his 16 professional fights. Don't be shocked if one of these two end up unconscious. And as Matt said, both of these guys are returning to the octagon on a losing streak, and this will inevitably strike hunger. The question is, who's going to have the bigger appetite? Khalil, Muay Thai base, owns some great kicks. They're always set up. Won't see him throwing naked kicks in that southpaw stance. He's going to be looking for the body kick with Bukasukas in the orthodox stance. And to be fair, even in both stances, Khalil, he utilizes them kicks that are available to him quite well. And his hands aren't bad either. Powerful check hook, great one too. Is really what got him to the Ultimate Fighter 23 when he was knocking out guys in the first round for RFA. Now, the grappling for Khalil, that's a different story. Cutelaba exposed that. He is just terrible on the ground. And although we haven't saw any grappling from Bukasukas in the UFC, I'm 100% sure that it is a step above Khalil just from his regional matchups alone. Bukasukas, much like Khalil, doesn't fight very well off his back foot. And this fight, in reality, could be Could be a contest of pressure, and whoever pressures more wins. Khalil doesn't find much success when his opponents are active in movement. And what's Bukasukas good at? Moving. That's one of his highlight skills for me. I can't see Khalil cutting the cage and removing that movement, even if it is the small cage. Guys like Eric Anders and Pratnial, these wins for Khalil, you'll notice the targets they've been considerably stationary in their footwork. They've been still targets for him, and Bukasukas isn't that guy. Rountree with, I'm going to give him the power and speed advantage. Bukasukas, I'm going to give him a movement and cardio advantage. It's a tough one to predict who's the greater striker of the two, but I'll just anticipate that outside of round one TKO or knockout, that Khalil is going to struggle finding the W. Bukasukas will need to utilize that 4-inch reach advantage it is going to have and avoid throwing naked body kicks, because that's why Jimmy Crute finished him. I think if he can let his strikes off and get out quick, Khalil will be struggling to land for all 3 rounds. And, Khalil's explosive style causes him to slow down after 5 to 7 minutes. And that's a big concern for me. In saying that, if Khalil catches him early, he has got that power and it could be lights out. So for me, I think it's a KO or bust situation for Khalil Rountree, and I do think he'll have a successful round one, which goes back to betting in play. I think this is an in play card all over. I used to give out live in play bets on my Twitter, but I just ain't got the time or patience to do that anymore. Sorry, I work too hard in the week to be live tweeting bets, but I will highlight them on this show that I do think this could be a great position where Khalil wins round one, them odds, they're going to flip, and then he's going to fade for the second and third and potentially get knocked out. The odds have gone, I think, in fact. I think Bukasukas opened as quite a stiff, quite a nice underdog price, and now I think what is 150 or 160. Yeah, and he opened at 130, so it's just, it's tough with MMA. You've really got to be sharp sometimes, and that's why I steer away from telling people what to bet, because I'd rather teach people how to bet and teach people about odds and line movement rather than tell them what to bet, because you have to be sharp and you have to get on these lines quick. It's no different than, an MLB game where in reality you need to bet them lines the night before, because if you're serious about this business and you want to bet long term, if you're going to bet Bukasukas at minus 150, if you're going to continue betting them lines, forget the fighter and who you think is going to win. Just from a mathematical standpoint, you are going to lose money long term. But if you got him at plus 130 and now he's at minus 150, you're laughing. If you can catch them lines before they flip, you're going to put yourself in some great positions. But ultimately, I think Bukasukas is going to win this. I'd like to say by decision, but as I said at the start of this breakdown, he's only been to the judges' scorecard twice, and Khalil does fade, so I can see him finishing Khalil late on. It's going to be Khalil round one knockout or Bukasukas late finish, or a unanimous decision, in my opinion.
I'm loving the bankroll management speech, by the way. We need more of that. Just manage your bankroll properly. Right. Maths over predictions. That's exactly what it is. That you have to treat the odds, the book is like the stock market. It's no different. You have to get the good prices, and if you don't, you're gonna lose. It doesn't matter about who wins, who you think's gonna win or lose the fight. It's all situational. Exactly. But if you guys do want to get in on the fight straight up, via BetOnline, Bukasukas is minus 151 and Rountree is plus 131. But did I ask Matt for? Yes, I did. See, this is where I'm at. I'm moving this weekend, so you can see where my mind is at. But okay, let's move on to the next fight. We have welterweights, Alex Morono versus David Zawada via BetOnline. Morono is minus 133 and Zawada is plus 113. Dave, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for this next fight.
I'll say it again. It's a real tough pick. As you can tell, these public bettors hammering that plus money on Zawada to bring Morono from minus 200 opener to now, minus 140, minus 150 at some books. Zawada, he's really been fed to the wolves since his debut. You got Danny Roberts to kick off his UFC career. A well-fought split decision loss, may I add. Then Jingliang Li finished him in the 3rd round. And then he got his first win at plus 240 underdog price against Abubakar Nurmagomedov. And then another close split decision loss to Ramazan Ameev. So Zawada is 1-3 in the UFC, but the level of competition is, they've hardly weaned him into the company. And he's underrated for this reason. That triangle that he locked on Nurmagomedov was proof. He's got the tools. Whether he can initiate on this weekend, that's another question. I believe his best weapon is probably his leg kicks, especially the low calf kick. And he's not too shabby in the clinch either. But when it comes to striking in general, it's all aggressiveness and it's all up the middle, which, it could catch Morono because neither of these guys move their head off the center line all that much. And then Morono, outside of his, impressive finisher, Cowboy Cerrone, who's an aging, beat-up Cerrone, we all know this is not the same Cowboy that we know and love. Majority of his wins, they come through a high output for Morono. He's light on his feet. He's got good footwork. He does need to move that head more, as I just mentioned. In this fight, I think he's going to come out fast, and that's slowed him down during later rounds in the past. Straight punches are going to be the problem for Zawada for sure. And if those leg kicks of Zawada get nullified, I envision Morono just outworking him to maybe, another sticky split decision loss for the German. When it comes to grappling, I'd probably give Zawada the edge strictly based on how bad Morono is off his back. But again, we rarely see Zawada attempt takedowns. So I do think this fight is going to play out on the feet. I like Morono to win by decision, but it's going to be a scrappy one. The value is there if you agree with me, but personally, I don't think I'm going to be betting it. It's gone from -200 to -140 on Morono. So as I said, if you do like that play, you are getting good value on it. No need to be hesitant on the maths there. But one of the prices I do like is this fight to go the distance at -150. I think that price and that wager interests me more than any side bet. Any bet picking between one of these two fighters, it's a bit of a coin flip. So I will lean Morono by decision. But as I say, if it's going to be a split, and these judges, we talk about these judges every week now. Yeah. It seems like, speaking about the judges, it seems like every single week, every single card, there is one judge giving the craziest scores that make no sense. But
they got bets on it.
it's I tell you what, it's crazy. I never used to have to consider the judges so much into handicapping, but now you do. And if that's not part of your handicapping game, add it now. You have to really consider these judges, and if you think a fight is going to be a close one and go split, then fight goes a distance. And at -150, I think that's a pretty decent price. So that would be my recommended bet for this one. But yeah, ultimately Morono by decision.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the prop real quick. I bet online as well. The fight to go the distance is also -150, and Morono by points is +120. So there's value there. But Matt, how about you? What is your breakdown and pick for this bout?
When you take a look at Alex Morono, he's alternated wins and losses in his last 5 fights. He beat Donald Cerrone, lost Anthony Pettis. He's had some pretty decent challenges ahead of him. So, and he's 8-4-1 in the UFC, and going up against that caliber of opponent, whether or not you see Anthony Pettis and Donald Cerrone as post-peak, going up against similar talent in Griffin, Chaos Williams, and Reese McKee, winning against Griffin, losing against Williams, and winning over McKee. It's a mixed bag. This is also a guy who's been knocked out twice, going up against a guy who's knocked out 11 human beings. But Zawada, under the bright lights, is 1-3 in the UFC. His only win came in the pre-baby cage era, and that was against Abubakar Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov, there we go, proper education, in November of 2019. But he did take a split decision. Well, he lost a split decision, but he took one of the judges against Amiv earlier this year. So another tough fight, another toss-up fight. But I like Morono in this one. I think that he might be able to pull this one off. I think that the level and quality of opponent he's faced in his last 5 fights weighs pretty heavily against Zawada, who, even though he's gotten some really, really, really good things on his record in terms of knockouts, we know he's got a chin. He's tapped before. So this fight can break, especially inside that smaller cage. We bring it up all the time, and I know people are like, why did they keep talking about the size of the cage? The size of the cage matters. You saw it in the Jake Paul Tyron Woodley fight last week. A larger ring creates more ability to create space. And if you're someone who dictates on reach and space and timing, the smaller the cage, the less opportunity you have to dictate the pace of the fight. So the closer you have to your opponent, the better it is for smaller opponents to get inside there. And I don't know the reach between these guys, but I do know that someone 8-4-1 in the UFC should not be an underdog against someone who's 1-3 inside the octagon. I'm going with Morono.
Okay. Well, straight up via BetOnline, Morono is -133 and Zawada is +113. But let's move on to the co-main. We have, and I'm loving this fight. We have heavyweight Tom Aspinall versus Sergey Spivak. Via BetOnline, Aspinall is -250 and Spivak is +210. And I'm gonna tell you right now, it's hard for me to fade Tom Aspinall, and I really love this matchup because I feel like this is going to be a very brutal fight. So if you have any reason why I am crazy for backing Tom Aspinall, please let me know. But Matt, I'm going to begin with you for this big boy fight for your breakdown and pick.
Love me a big boy fight, but it's not crazy. You're not insane for that pick to pick Tom Aspinall. He's got 6 straight fights dating back to 2016. But then you realize the last person he fought was Andrei Arlovsky back in February, and he was able to pull a submission. This is a fighter who's never seen the 3rd round in his entire career. His only loss has been by submission and by disqualification. So you know something banana pants is going to happen. Anybody who gets a DQ in mixed martial arts, they're 5 seconds away from Breaking Bad and starting a Malice at the Palace. That's just my own personal belief. No one here at SBR, I don't know if they all agree with me, but for legal ramifications, I'm the only one who say that. That's my opinion. Don't sue. But then you have Sergey Spivak, who's on a 3-fight winning streak. He's got, 2 decisions over Alexei Olenek and Carlos Felipe, and a TKO over Jared Vanderhaa. His only pro losses have come against Marcin Tybura and Walt Harris, and that's the concerning thing, is that you see Tybura and you see Harris, and to someone who sees their name pretty frequently, like, oh, that's a quality loss. But then you see Walt Harris over the past few years, and despite the tragedy his family has gone through, and you can put that as a contributing factor, his performance has not really dictated his spot on the card, and you have to weigh it against that, and then weigh that against Spivak. Now he might have improved expeditiously from those fights against Tybura and Harris, and he's faced higher quality competition in the UFC than Aspinall. For me, this is a true toss-up. I like Spivak in this fight, but if you want to play a dangerous game, I would take the under in a parlay.
All right. Well, I'm very curious to hear what Dave has to say. Dave, I would love to hear your breakdown and pick for the co-main.
Now, I'm a big supporter of my British fighters, but, I've already questioned Paddy Pimblett's skill set. So, when I pick Tom Aspinall here, there is no bias involved. Team Cowbond, they're taking over the co-main event with Aspinall and Till. And, it's refreshing to have a big boy heavyweight from my neck of the woods fight in the heavyweight division. Our heavyweight MMA fighters really are non-existent, and Aspinall, he struggled to find fights before getting to the UFC, so much so that he started boxing at one period of his life. Now, a big difference between Aspinall and most UK fighters is that he's focused on multiple disciplines from an early age, And it really does become evident when you study his fight history, boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and there aren't many heavyweights who are well versed on the ground. But Aspinall won multiple British Open, BJJ tournaments, and he actually won them at every bout grade apart from black belt. And then his dad became full-time coach at Team Cowabon, and that's when he transitioned to MMA full-time. He dominated in Cage Warriors, whilst turning down a UFC contract, I think, on 2 occasions, similar to Paddy. This is a man that knows himself, I think, and I think he knows his skill set. Another evidential factor, because when he did finally accept the offer, he's won all 3 of his fights, and all of them inside the distance. Aspinall is really a bright prospect, fast hand speed, great defense. He's always got his hands up, awesome head movement. He doesn't overexert himself. He's got great combinations, always using feints. And, he handed Andrei Arlovski his 2nd ever submission loss. Now, defeating a veteran of that magnitude, I think that's a significant booster in confidence. It's the movement of Aspinall that stands out. He doesn't look like a heavyweight with how smooth, fast, and fluid his movement is. When it comes to striking, I have no doubt in my mind that Tom Aspinall will have more success in this area of the fight on Saturday. Now, I'm blabbing on, and I haven't mentioned Sergey Spivak, but he's no slouch either, only 26 years old. The future of the UFC heavyweight division looks bright, and since those early losses that Matt mentioned to Harris and Tybura, his striking has come on leaps and bounds. But this should be expected with such a young fighter, and to be honest, both guys are young and improving fight to fight. Spivak, you notice he's been pushing that jab out nicely, which you wouldn't have saw early on. But still, I cannot see him wanting to strike with Aspinall. Spivak will want the takedowns this weekend. He'll need to grind out Aspinall on the ground and remove that dangerous striking threat. What's worrying me is that Aspinall hasn't really defended a takedown probably since 2015, when he lost to a guy called Stuart Austin by heel hook. And in that fight, his takedown defense looked horrific. But I'm hoping, because we haven't seen, this is just a guessing game, I'm hoping that the extra 6 years of experience and training that Tom has excelled in this area. I think he must have been 21, 22 at the time. I'm high on Aspinall. The problem is I'm not minus 280 high. Don't get me wrong, I'm siding with him taking this W, and I think he's going to find the TKO finish on Spivak. But the grappling question is still there, and this is going to be answered on Saturday. It's going to be answered. There's no doubt Spivak is going to attempt the takedowns. And look, Aspinall is not bad at grappling and wrestling himself. But I do think if you are betting Aspinall, maybe hit the inside the distance prop at minus 150 to gain a bit more value. I would say the KO prop, because that's at around plus 150, I believe. But we could see a similar situation to the Arlovski fight, where follow strikes are switched to a rear naked choke. Now, Spivak, I don't think he's ever been submitted, and I don't really see Aspinall submitting him despite him being a decent BJJ practitioner. But as I say, I can see a similar situation where Spivak gets dropped and, he's dazed and confused and he gets choked. Straight ground play. I don't think we're going to see two heavyweights scrambling about, transitioning, looking for each other's back. But I do think Aspinall is going to finish this fight inside the distance. And at minus 150, that's much better than risking close to 3 units for a 1 unit return. 1.5 units I'm much more happier with than laying up on that juice, which is... I say it time and time again. No matter how desirable it is, if you continue to lay these big juice numbers, you're gonna get hit. And at minus 300, you could be playing plus 100s for every what you lose one minus 300. That's 3 units out of your bankroll, and that's That's not the way to profit. So as much as I do like Aspinall and I think he's going to win, the price is bothering me. Even though the bookmakers have more confidence than anyone because they opened him at -300 and now is floating around the -250 area. So you can see that people have got faith in Spivak and the money is coming in on him, and don't doubt this kid. And that's what I'm saying. Do not put 3 units on Tom Aspinall. If anything, put him in a parlay. Or like I say, take the inside the distance prop.
I'm so happy you said that because I included this fight in my top UFC picks video, so check it out if you want to hear my reason why. But Dave, I feel so good now because I feel like you took it straight from my mouth. I'm actually taking Tom Aspinall to win inside the distance at -160, so that's nice. Makes me feel better. But again, straight up, the bet online Aspinall is -250 and Spivak is +210. That should be a great fight, honestly. But let's move on to the main event. We have middleweights Derek Brunson versus Darren Till. The bet online Till is -172 and Brunson is +147. Matt, I'll begin with you this time for your breakdown and pick for the main event.
Man, oh man, Shevitz. This one is a tough fight to pick. And when you take a look at Derek Brunson, he's got a 4-fight winning streak. Over Kevin Holland, probably his toughest opponent in that run. TKO of Edin Shabazian, the unanimous decisions over Ian Heinisch and Elias Theodorou. And then you see the Strikeforce OG losing to Israel Adesanya and Jacare Souza prior to that, both times by first-round TKO. He's in his late 30s. He's a lifer in mixed martial arts. And then you have Darren Till, who you want to root for because he's such a troll. And he is the embodiment of MMA Twitter. And there's so much joy and entertainment value. It's like a less douchey Colby Covington. Yeah, and I loathe Colby Covington, by the way. I welcome your letters. But then you take a look at his last 5 fights. Losses to Robert Whittaker, getting dropped by Jorge Masvidal, submitted against Tyron Woodley. And yes, we've seen him jump back up to middleweight. But this is his 3rd fight since jumping back to middleweight. And, those losses against Masvidal and Whittaker that loss against Whittaker was at middleweight. Not really good. You want to root for him, and he's been very open with his issues with anxiety, and it's a real thing. One of the greatest fighters of all time, George St. Pierre, said at times right before a fight he did not want to go out there. He did not want to fight. Anxiety and panic is a true thing, no matter how strong or how tough you are. That will try its best to defeat you. Your mind and your body will defeat you more than any opponent. And that's the big issue with this fight for me. Darren Till, baby cage era, all of his issues aside, he's a monster. And you want to root for the guy to overcome these issues and get a statement win against an OG in this sport. But this fight to me is a toss-up. What kind of Darren Till are we going to see inside that cage? How is Derek Brunson going to come into this fight? What's the game plan here? He can beat you with submissions. He can beat you on the feet. But then this is a 5-round fight. Is Till going to play the long game? Is he going to be able to use his distance? Is he going to be able to use his skills? This is a guy who lived in Brazil for 3.5 years, learning how to be a fully rounded fighter. And there's a lot of questions here. I'm going to go with Darren Till. But if you're looking for a parlay piece, you may want to take Brunson in the over.
Okay. Well, I personally like Darren Till in this matchup. I think it's going to be wrestling versus his kickboxing in this matchup. And I just feel like he stuffs like 82% of his takedowns too. And I feel like once you bring him down, it's hard to keep him down. So for me, I'm taking Darren Till. And I also included this in my top UFC picks video, so you can hear my entire restate for that as well in that video. But Dave, I'd love to hear your breakdown and pick for this main event.
Well, the English theme is going to continue. And despite it not being in London, Darren Till is going to bring it home straight after Tom Aspinall does. Although has this price sales towards -200, the value is evaporating. It's becoming very difficult to make a play on Till for anybody. I gave him out at a better price last week. We got cliche striker versus wrestler. But the good news for British fight fans, Darren Till has shown some incredible takedown defense during his middleweight stint and welterweight stint. The bad news is 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and his last win was a close split decision against Kelvin Gastelum. He's fought legit wrestlers, Woodley, Whitaker, and Gastelum. They all struggle to take him down. But the thing is, if you can get him down, he's not that good at getting back up, especially if it's in the center of the octagon. And we saw, Tyron Woodley catching Till with that rocket because his chin was out in the air. And then that led to the dash choke early in the fight. But again, nobody's really had success wrestling Till. And we have to bear this in mind, that it was a welterweight cut and a championship version of Woodley, not the Jake Paul boxing version. But ultimately, this is another tough fight to call. If Brunson continues to threaten those level changes and takedowns and pulls, a Woodley-esque approach with a quick blitz of strikes, which we know he's got in him, and we know he's got hands power, Till could be in trouble. I think the question is, will Brunson react to the feints of Till? Because falling into that trap is going to give him a world of hesitation that's going to severely affect his wrestling, in my opinion. Now, obviously, we talk about the smaller cage. That does favour Brunson here. And despite owning some questionable striking a few years back, you can quite clearly see that Henry Hoof has worked closely with Brunson on this striking, because it's got much better than it once was. And we can't deny, as an all-round, mixed martial artist, Brunson does have more paths and more tools in his bag. But other variables, they leave my gut instinct siding with Darren Till, like constant feints, a good use of distance control, which, in reality, that's all leading up to that power left. A bit like McGregor, and he does often rely on that left too much. He's got good clinch work as well, but I'd like him to steer away from that, because if he gets too close to Brunson, he's going to be getting body locked and tripped, and Brunson is really good at that. Division 2 wrestler, won championship 3 times, I think it was 3 or 4 times. If Till wants the blueprint for this fight, it's quite simple. Just watch Israel Adesanya versus Derek Brunson, and it's a case of staying at range, remaining patient, which I'll add Darren Till is very good at remaining patient. And in fact, the remaining patient has gone against him in some of his previous fights, because his output hasn't been there. But this could work against a guy like Brunson. Remain patient and pick him apart. Brunson hasn't faced many guys who can actually sprawl takedowns. The last time was against Izzy. So that's it for me. We've got a 10-year age gap, superior striking skill, and the ability to defend Brunson's key weapon. I think it's Darren Till by KO or decision. And if you can get a lot of books don't offer that prop, and to be fair, that you're probably not going to get a great price on it. It's tough. Maybe just straight Darren Till by KO. I'm not sure if Brunson can last 5 minutes. I mean, Izzy caught him in, was it Izzy caught him? I can't remember if it was the first or second. I just don't envision Brunson surviving that left when it does eventually connect. And I just got a feeling he's going to defend them takedowns. Brunson can get a bit eager, and he's going to get disheartened as soon as Darren sprawls one of his attempts. And I think as soon as that happens, he's going to be winging shots, and he might find himself getting caught on the end of that left. So for me, it's Darren Till by knockout. But again, Darren, he's been weird. His fights lately, he's been a bit hesitant. That the killer instinct, I don't know, it seems to have disappeared a little bit. So I do think there is a potential for a decision here. But with Brunson's chin, and again, I know he's on a 4-fight win streak, but Kevin Holland, these were exposing fights. It's like people have said it before that Brunson's a bit of a gatekeeper, and he's shown Edmund Shabazian and Kevin Holland. They're not elite fighters. They're not top 10 fighters. I'm just gonna come out and say it. And Ian Heinisch is no way near as good as a striker as Darren Till is. And then Elias Theodorou is a model. So for me, this 4-fight win streak is not as impressive as people will be making it out to be. I'm not taking anything away from Derek Brunson, but when he faces the upper echelon, prime Ronaldo Souza, Israel Adesanya, Anderson Silva, Rob Whittaker, these guys that can defend them takedowns, which is his path to victory, he's not going to stand much chance outside of a lucky punch like when he's caught Machida in round 1, which was heart-wrenching for me because I love Machida, and to watch him catch one of them lucky wild strikes was just it was insane. And it happens, this is the fight game. I just don't think you're going to do that against Darren Till this weekend. So yeah, it's Darren Till for me all day.
So I'm just looking at the props just in case. So Darren Till by knockout or TKO is plus 150, and then Darren Till by points is plus 250. Compared to straight up, Till is minus 172. So if you guys want to check out the value, it's in the MMA props. Again, do your homework, do your research before you just throw your money out there. But again,
I'm sorry, but I just saw on Twitter someone with the name at JKE _ a litany of times said Paddy is an Irish donut. I'm sorry. If you're taking a look at him, and I'm not, when you have the name Paddy and you legit look like you could be mine or Dave's cousin, you have to assume there's Irish ancestry there. So I apologize.
But even then, you look at me, no one would assume that I'm Irish. So it's just
my dad immigrated from Ireland. You know, my accent would say I'm English, but if I get my hair out and I show you my dad's passport, you're gonna see that I'm Irish. So
yeah, just ignore those haters. But again, Bet Online, straight up, Darren Till is minus 172 and Derek Brunson is plus 147. Now, before we run out of time, let's go into our top preliminary pick. And honestly, there's 2 fights that I'm keeping an eye out for. And Dave, I feel like you're going to like this one, Molly McCann versus Jin Yoon Kim. And then the second one is Juliana Rosa versus Charles Jourdain. But out of the 2 of those, my favorite one is definitely Molly McCann. But I feel like this is going to be a toss-up for me. I'm really going to enjoy this fight too. But I'm really excited for this prelim fight, but I want to hear what you guys are looking into on the prelim card. Dave, I'll start with you just really briefly. Do you have a top prelim pick that you're keeping an eye on?
I mean, I would go with Jack Shaw, and this guy's had two rescheduled fights. It's just all over the place at the moment. Ludwig, he has got no striking now. We see Jack Shaw often go for the grappling game. He's really good at the grappling. But I think he can outstrike Ludwig here and get a few takedowns of his own. I think the opposition is evident in the odds.
Yeah,
I think he might even get a finish. Yeah, I think he might even get a finish. So the problem is, I do think he can knock him out. So it's just picking the finish. I'm going to assume that the inside the distance prop may still be in the minus region, which is minus not something. Well, it's not too bad, I guess.
Not too bad.
I always like plus money for these props, though. Yeah. But then it leads to whether we pick the KO or the knockout. I just really don't know, so it's tough. But, boy, fight of the night potential, Charles Jourdain versus Juliana Rosa. Juicy J, he fights for your money, but Charles Jourdain is such a scrapper, and for me, this is all about durability. I do not think this fight is going to go the distance, so I'm going to lean with Charles Jourdain. I think you can get some pretty good odds on him too. Yeah. I'm favoring Jourdain here. That line, I feel, is going to continue growing. If you don't like placing large amount of units like I, just hit up Jourdain in a parlay maybe, or even the under. Because these two are going to absolutely throw down, and I don't see it going to the judges.
I love this fight. That's why I mentioned it before. But Jourdain is minus 180 right now. The under 2.5 is minus 155. For the MMA props, Charles Jourdain to win inside the distance is plus 115. So there's value for you there. But, Matt, is there a top prelim fight that you were looking out for?
You know, the prelim card is actually a lot of fun. You got Molly McCann up top against Ji Hyun Kim. You've got Jack Shore in action. Julian Erosa and Charles Jourdain at a catchweight's a fun fight, but for me, it's the second fight on the prelim card. Dalcha champion, former EFC lightweight champion, someone I saw at my time at Fight Sports covering the EFC. 11-2. He's had an interesting run so far in the UFC. He was last seen in January getting a decision win over Marcus Perez. He might be 36 years old and is only 11-2. Only been fighting since 2014. But EFC is not not a place filled with jabronis. There's some quality fighters there that we've seen make the run into the UFC. Had an impressive debut against Daquan Townsend. Met Magomed Ankalaev in his second fight in the UFC. And it's only his second fight in the baby cage era. His first fight in the States since his UFC debut. I think this is going to be an interesting test for him, and it's going to be a fun fight on a really fun card.
Oh, this whole card from top to bottom, I love it. I'm excited for it. If it was certain picks or bets, but the overall, just watching it, I'm very excited for this. But let's move on to our lock on the card segment. Yay, the fun segment. But honestly, just looking at this, every single fight on here, if I had to choose a lock, I would choose probably Tom Aspinall, in my opinion. I think he's a lot more well-rounded than Spivak, in my opinion. But I want to hear what you guys have for your potential lock on the card. Matt, I'll begin with you, please.
Oh, I hate this segment every week. I don't hate it as much as Dave, but I hate it.
It's pressure, okay?
I'm going to go with Morono. I'm going to go with Alex Morono as my lock on the card. Dalcha in the second one. In the prelims, he'll be my lock. But if you're looking for a main card lock, I think it's going to be Alex Morono.
All right, beautiful. Well, how about you, Dave? Do you have a potential lock on this card?
I mean, it's rough. You can't really hide away from the juice here. Jack Shaw, he's the obvious lock, but opening at -285 to now 500, close to 600 at some books, that is always rough. It's all English. I'm gonna fly the British flag, and I'm gonna say that Tom Aspinall and Darren Till, slightly better in value locks on the card, should I say? But we'll go, all out British actually. Jack Shaw, Wales, Darren Till, and Tom Aspinall, England. Let's go.
Let's get it. Well, that's our lock on the card segment. We just finished our entire main card breakdown for UFC Vegas 36, Till versus Brunson. If you guys have any questions for any of us, just hit us up on Twitter. You can follow Dave at @dmanion_, and you can follow Matt at @mryan consulting. And then while you're at it, just give SBR a follow at SBR Sports Picks. If you would like to find more breakdowns and picks regarding anything UFC related, just go to sbrpicks.com/UFC. And also remember my football fans, we have SBR's Pick 6 football contest starting September 7th. There's going to be a lot of weekly prizes. At least $1,600 a week are given away, and at the end, there's going to be a grand total prize adding up to $50,000. So just sign up and register at sbrpicks.com/pick6. And like always, I wish you all the best of luck on all of your wagers, and I'll see you next time.